The following is an in-depth study of the song A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. What I hope you get out of this is not only a deeper understanding of this iconic song, but also an example of how to delve into analyzing a song. And the first step of our song analysis is learning a bit about the background of the song. The song itself was written by Sam Cooke and first performed on the Johnny Carson Show in February 1964. It was initially released as part of the album Ain't That Good News in March 1964. It was very popular and was released as a single at the end of December 1964, which incidentally was 2 weeks after he was shot in a hotel in Los Angeles. The song was originally inspired by Sam Cooke's personal experience of being turned away from a whites-only motel in Louisiana, but it also speaks to the experiences of the African-American community of injustices and inequality. The afterlife of this song is also substantial. It was taken up as an anthem of the civil rights movement and continues to have influential social impact. In the second stage of our song analysis, we will look at the performing forces, or what we can call the instruments and vocals performing the work. Now, when Sam Cooke went into the recording studio with this piece, he wanted it to be orchestral. He wanted it to be big, like a movie score. So we do have something big. After Sam Cooke's lead vocal, we have 4 backing vocals, 4 guitars, a bass guitar, and piano. Then there's a French horn, trumpet, 3 trombones, 8 violins, 2 violas, a cello, drums, and sundry percussion. In this list, I have grouped the instruments by instrument family, just as an orchestra would be grouped. You have the elements of the band up top, then the brass section, then the string section, and then the percussion section. So let's take a brief refresher on what these instruments are and what they contribute. The first instrument is the French horn, or just the horn. It's sort of a middle range instrument, has a wonderful mellow sound, and we'll hear it serving an important melodic function in this song. Next we have the trumpet, which is in the higher range of the brass family. And finally we have the trombones, which are in the lower range of the brass family. There's 3 trombones called for because they play a fanfare in the song. And a fanfare is an announcement chord, and chords generally have 3 notes to them, especially this kind of chord, hence the 3 trombones. Next we have the string family, which ranges from high to low, violin, viola, cello, except Sam Cooke doesn't use the bass in this orchestration. The next step of our analysis is to get our bearings around the song itself, and looking at the form helps us do that. So before we listen, let's look at the lyrics. So we have 5 sections of text, and we're looking for repetitions. So we see 4 of the chunks of text have the same 2 lines at the end. So we can call this a verse with the refrain. I'm going to take a little interlude in our discussion of the form of the piece, and you'll notice that I marked the verse and refrain as each having 8 bars. So how do I know that? Well, counting out the bars in a verse helps us figure out what kind of song it is. If it's blues, we can count out the 12 bars. This song is a little bit trickier in terms of counting. It's in a meter called compound meter. So what is compound meter? Well, like we said before, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's technically divisible by 2, so it's in a duple meter. The other kind of meter is a triple meter. Now, in compound meter, we have both. It is a macro division of 2 with a micro division of 3. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 would be divisible by 2 and 3. I'm going to play a little bit of the song for you and count it out so you can hear that duple and triple meter. Listen to the drum. That will help you with the counting. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. So why even talk about meter? Meter kind of sets the mood or the character for a piece, and traditionally compound meter is used in a contemplative way. And so when you hear the compound meter, it sets the stage for this more introspective, contemplative mood. So let's go back to the form of the piece. We saw the 4 chunks that were alike, and then we saw the one thing that wasn't like the other. So we can call the ones that are alike A, and the one that isn't alike B. And you might have already guessed that is the bridge. So what else has a form like this? Well, it's not blues, because blues has verses of AAB, AAB. And it's a little bit more like the popular songs, or maybe even the gospel songs. Understanding the form helps us understand the background of this piece of music. Now that we kind of have the structure of the piece, we can go into the next stage of analysis. What is the song about? Now, we already know from the background of the piece that the inspiration for Sam Cooke writing the piece was racial inequality, and we see that right away in the first verse. I was born by the river, as if to signal the disparity of economic opportunities, living in a tent. The refrain at the end of each verse, it's been a long time coming, but change is going to come, is the kind of hopeful lyrics of faith that you would find in a gospel song. Yet, going into the next verse, you can see him struggling to see this future of justice. And again, when he's talking about up there beyond the sky, he could be referencing the gospel language of heaven. When we get to the third verse about going downtown, obviously we're talking about whites-only spaces, which was the original inspiration for the song. At the bridge, there's a change in voice. When he started the song, it was talking about himself and what he was thinking inside. At the bridge, the voice changes outward into a conversation with his brother. And we have to ask, who is this brother? Well, it's pretty apparent from the text in the historic and social context. This is systemic white suppression. But it's interesting that he does use the word brother because it sort of emphasizes the fact of their shared humanity. At the last verse, we return to the sentiments of faith and hope imported from the gospel style, and which we've heard over and over again with the refrain. Now, when we're looking at a song and we're making the move from looking at lyrics to the music, we have to ask ourselves the question, why bother setting this poetry to music? What is the extra thing that music brings that helps the poem become more than it is just standing alone as words? Now, when the song opens, it opens with a big orchestral dramatic sweep, as if setting up the story or the narrative of the drama. But then the big orchestral sound pulls back as the voice enters, as if to set the stage for the storyteller. I was born. In the next verse, he uses strings in a very high and open register to depict the space opening up into the sky. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. We also hear in the refrain a little counter melody that comes out with the cello. Beyond the sky, it's been a long... And we hear this in the first and third verses as well, although performed by the horn. And this counter melody kind of emerges at the end of the first line of the refrain. Yes, it will. And this counter melody is very tender and speaks to the inner thoughts of the speaker. The next section probably most directly references segregation, and it opens with this trombone fanfare that I told you would be coming, as if to signal defiance.
To the movie, and I go downtown.
The bridge also starts with this fanfare of defiance, but it's against strings going da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which is tremolo, and it's almost like this fanfare is over agitation.
Then I go to my brother, and I say, brother, help me please.
This is a nice segue to the last verse, where again we start with this fanfare of victory.
There have been times that I thought I could last for long.
The very end ends with this big, epic, grand orchestral final chord, as if to tell us that this big old story is come to a conclusion. Now, I mentioned earlier that this song has a powerful afterlife, and it's been covered by many different artists, and each one has their own kind of twist and relevance for this particular powerful song. And I want to briefly look at Aretha Franklin's version and just point out a couple things. Now, as we just saw, orchestration matters. What kind of instruments you use can set the tone and create a particular dramatic space. So let's see how she sets up the bass with the instrumentation.
I was born by the river in a little tent.
She begins in almost a preacherly style, and you hear right away the organ come in and the gospel instrumentation, a lot more explicitly gospel than Sam Cooke's version. In Aretha Franklin's version, she does not have the third verse, the verse that expressly points out the segregation of Sam Cooke's version. But I also want you to listen to the bridge, because there is a slight alteration, and I want you to think about that question. Who is the brother being represented here?
I went to my brother, and I asked him, brother, could you help me please? He said, good sister,
did you hear the changes in text for the bridge? Going directly from the second verse to the bridge, eliminating the section about segregation, and having the bridge's conversation between a brother and a sister adds a feminist layer to this struggle for equal rights. So in this song analysis, we've looked at the background of the song, the instrumentation, the lyrics, the form, how the instruments interpret the song, and we also looked at a cover. We get this in-depth view of this iconic song.